August 2nd, 2025, 3:47 a.m., Ryazan region. 4 blips flare up on the screens of the on-duty crew at Russia's most modern surface-to-air missile system, the S-400. On the display, they look like a flock of birds, except this flock is flying in an almost perfect formation. Their speed's about 236 miles per hour, approximately 380 kilometers per hour, too fast for birds, too low for missiles, and nearly invisible to radar. The Russian operator instantly understands. These are drones, Ukrainian drones. Within milliseconds, the computer analyzes the radar signatures and pops up identifying information. UJ-26 Beaver kamikaze drones, which Ukraine frequently uses for strikes deep inside Russian-held territory. Their objective today is unmistakable. They're headed toward Moscow, straight for one of the largest oil refineries in the Moscow region. Time, which until this moment had been dragging, suddenly begins to race. The drones rapidly close the distance to their target. Radars now show 30 miles or about 52 kilometers to the refinery and only 16 miles or 27 kilometers to the S-400 battery position. The 4 drones are skimming almost at ground level, hiding behind terrain contours. Their flight is a shadow sliding over the night plain. Then one abruptly climbs to 2,600 feet, about 800 meters. This is not an operator error, but a deliberate calculation. The climb lets the drone catch a clear GPS signal from multiple satellites, resetting navigation drift that builds up during a long flight on a single inertial system. At the same time, the sudden ascent is bait meant to force the air defenses to reveal themselves. That maneuver presents the Russian air defense crew commander with a dilemma. Fire now, and he may waste millions of dollars because 3 drones are flying at minimal altitude and will soon enter radar dead zones where they become unreachable for S-400 missiles. In the launch tubes behind him sit 48 N-6 missiles, each costing around $2 million. Do not fire, and he risks being asked why he let a clean target at 2,600 feet go. If those drones strike the refinery, his career insignia could be at stake. He has 14 seconds to decide. He chooses to risk the millions rather than risk his stars on the epaulets. Launch. 2 48 N-6 missiles erupt from their canisters, scream into the sky, leaving thick plumes of flame, and within seconds accelerate to about Mach 6. But the Ukrainian forces had foreseen this. At the command, all 4 drones suddenly drop to about 650 feet, roughly 200 meters, diving into the radar dead zone. Their returns vanish from the Russian radar, and without radar illumination, the semi-active radar homing heads of the Russian missiles go blind. The missile's auto-protection triggers, and they self-destruct about 80 meters above the ground. Thousands of steel fragments that could shred any aircraft instead tear through empty air. A bright glow lights the night sky, but the result is 0. A few seconds later, responsibility shifts to the next and last line of defense around the refinery, the Panzer systems. 2 Panzer S-1 batteries must stop what their more prestigious colleague, the S-400, could not. On the Panzer radars, the drone returns look like a barely perceptible rustle against a background of noise, and the time left to strike is melting like ice in the hand. Then another surprise. The 4 heroic drones that had slipped past the S-400 suddenly climb and eject triangular aluminum reflectors. To radar, this is the same as a flashlight being shown into a person's eyes, a flash. Barely visible targets instantly become huge. The Panzer computers immediately classify them as long-range cruise missiles. For the Panzer, that becomes the highest priority. One by one, they launch their missiles, first, second, third, fourth. The drones keep dispensing cheap aluminum angles that the Russian Panzers shoot up like targets at a firing range. 2 Panzers fire 24 missiles in total, each costing roughly $100,000, about $2.4 million in all, to intercept aluminum triangles worth a few $100s. Excellent business. Add to that the $4 million expended on the parade of drones in front of 2 48 N-6 missiles from the S-400. Even if those 4 drones did nothing else, they would have already paid for themselves many times over. But their performance is not finished. The second act is complete, and Act 3 begins. While the valiant quartet perform from one direction, another 8 performers, Ukrainian UJ-26 Beavers, are sneaking in at ground level from the opposite side. They approach at 40 to 80 meters, about 130 to 260 feet, inexorable as a divine sword. The Ukrainian forces exploited the Panzer's weakness. Its radar provides 360-degree coverage, But to swing a 3-ton turret with twin 30mm guns, it needs 5 seconds. In modern combat, 5 seconds is almost an eternity. The Panzer commander shouted, "Turn!" Electric and hydraulic motors howled, the turret jolted and began to rotate. 10, 30, 60, 90 degrees. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian drones rapidly closed the distance to the target. 10, 9, 8 kilometers. Finally, the turrets completed a 180-degree sweep. Their guns recoiled and spat tracer-lined arcs of fire. One drone detonated, then the second, the third. But precious time had been lost. Those 5 seconds needed to swing the turret proved decisive. 3 drones slipped past the Panzers and rushed toward an already defenseless target. Almost simultaneously, 3 explosions rocked the plant. The hit struck oil storage tanks. Thousands of tons of fuel turned everything around into a burning hell. Steel structures, softened by 1,000-degree flames, became pliable like modeling clay. Cracking columns plunged into the inferno, followed by heat exchangers used to heat crude. The most resilient elements were the catalysts used to upgrade low-octane gasoline fractions into high-octane fuel. Even they succumbed to the onslaught of fire. This was not merely a strike against equipment, this was a calculated, precise act of destruction. Gasoline is the blood of war, and the Ukrainians have learned how to perform effective bloodletting on their enemy. Each month, the Ukrainian military strikes 10 to 15 refineries. At this rate, Russia, once one of the world's largest fuel exporters, is on the path to becoming an importer. While the fiery inferno was consuming the oil refinery near Moscow and thick black smoke spiraled into the sky, another battle was beginning elsewhere. 6 Ukrainian UJ-26 drones were flying toward their target at extremely low altitude. Suddenly, their operators' screens went white with static. GPS was gone, communication cut off. The drones were blind. The reason was the Crocus 4, a Russian electronic warfare vehicle designed to jam the entire frequency range from 0.1 to 18 gigahertz with high, concentrated power. If the GPS signal could be imagined as a whisper, by the time it reaches a drone, it's already faint. Now imagine powerful speakers blasting nearby. That's what the Crocus was for the drones. The drones automatically switch to inertial navigation, which relies on gyroscopes and accelerometers. But when flying hundreds of kilometers, even the tiniest error accumulates, turning first into tens of meters, then hundreds, leading to a mess. The Ukrainians, however, had prepared for this scenario. The lead drone, after losing GPS signal, followed its preset contingency plan. It suddenly climbed to 2,600 feet, around 800 meters, and locked onto a clean satellite signal. It compared the accumulated inertial drift with an accurate GNSS fix, compressed the correction into a tiny packet, and, risking detection while rapidly changing transmission frequency 1,000 times per second, broadcast a 128-byte ping into the air. In an instant, the other drones received the fragment, corrected their course, and navigation came back to life. From that moment, every second was calculated. Their target was not a radar station or a storage hangar, but tank number 7, the key reservoir near the main loading platform, the very heart of the refinery's logistics. A hit there would mean an instant rupture of supply channels and a fiery apocalypse. At exactly 4:20 a.m., 6 Ukrainian drones attacked tank number 7, a massive steel giant towering over the surrounding area. The monster couldn't withstand the impact. Explosives tore through its shell, sheared off its supports, and thousands of tons of oil cascaded directly into the flames. The gloomy Moscow region dawn lit up with sinister crimson reflections from the inferno raging below. Nearby, the Crocus 4 electronic warfare vehicle failed to start. Seeing the advancing wall of fire, its crew panicked, abandoned their $20 million machine, and fled. But the Ukrainian performance wasn't over yet. Another 8 drones were heading towards an even more heavily defended target, the Pomorsko-Akhtarsk Air Base in the Krasnodar region, home to Su-25 attack aircraft and Su-34 frontline bombers actively engaged in the war, especially the Su-34s. These bombers deliver strikes with KABs, guided aerial bombs, which the Russian army now uses not only on frontline positions, but also on cities deep in the rear. Even the smallest in that class, the KAB-500, weighs 1,100 pounds, 500 kilograms, and can bring down a multi-story apartment building with hundreds of residents inside. The base was protected by 4 Tor M2 surface-to-air missile systems with overlapping coverage zones and 2 Su-35 fighter jets. Incidentally, in the same Krasnodar region lies the resort of Sochi, where just 6 miles, 10 kilometers from its center is Putin's favorite residence, Bacharov Ruchi. The Russian president reportedly spends nearly as much time there as he does in Moscow. But let's return to our group of 8 Ukrainian drones. Their operators had devised a clever strike plan. Instead of approaching the target directly, they guided the drones in a sinusoidal, snake-like pattern. This type of flight consumes more fuel but breaks predictability, creating uncertainty about where interception might occur. At 4:32 a.m. local time, all 4 Tor M2 systems opened fire on the drones. One after another, interceptor missiles streaked into the sky. 1, 2, 3. In just 30 seconds, 32 missiles were launched, 4 per drone. Then something extraordinary happened. Receiving live intelligence updates, the Ukrainian operators suddenly ordered their drones to climb from 330 feet to 2,600 feet, from 100 meters to about 800. It was a risky maneuver. The fragile plastic and plywood frames of these small aircraft could have easily failed under the stress, but it was the only way to survive, and it worked. The airframes held together while the missile guidance heads briefly lost lock on their targets. Those few seconds were enough for the drones to slip past. Only a handful of the 32 missiles managed to catch the heat signatures and explode nearby. Still, there were simply too many missiles in the air. Eventually, all drones were destroyed, yet the Russians celebrated too soon. That heroic group of 8 drones was only a diversion. The real strike came from the sea. 4 more UJ-26 Beavers glided in silently like shadows and delivered a devastating blow. Explosions and smoke engulfed 4 hangars filled with aircraft. The diversion and perfect synchronization determined the outcome of the operation. While the Tors were busy engaging the first group, the maritime corridor remained unprotected. The result, 4 destroyed aircraft, each worth around $50 million. Morning in the Moscow region and the Krasnodar area was veiled in thick smoke. The oil refinery and the Primorsko-Akhtarsk air base were both left crippled for a long time. Russia's air defense systems, the S-400s, Pantsers, Tors, and electronic warfare equipment, proved powerless. That morning showed that even overwhelming power can be defeated through strategy, ingenuity, and coordination. Once again, Ukraine demonstrated that it fights not by numbers, but by skill. And though it may be slowly, very slowly giving up ground, it's bleeding its enemy dry. Whether the Russian bear can survive such relentless bloodletting for another year or two remains an open question. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you again soon.